T. 2 hours. That's what the doctors gave his twin boys. 2 hours to live. And Leonard Smith, a man who built empires, stood frozen in that hospital hallway, completely powerless. What happened next defied everything medicine could explain. The call came at 3:47 a.m. Children's Hospital. Emergency. Leonard Smith drove through empty streets, whispering prayers he hadn't said in years. Please, God, not them. When he reached the hospital, a doctor met him with a face that said everything. Mr. Smith, both boys are in respiratory failure. You have about 2 hours. 2 hours. Leonard's legs nearly gave out. Jason and Justin, 11 months old, dying. He walked to the window and looked in. His baby boys lay in separate beds, tiny chests fighting for air, machines counting down. A nurse touched his shoulder. Would you like to go in? I can't. He pressed his forehead against the glass, drowning in shame. All his money, all his power, and he couldn't walk through that door. That's when Christina Walsh appeared, the housekeeper, the woman he'd barely noticed in 3 years. She walked straight to the nurse's station and said something that made the nurse's eyes go wide. Dr. Walsh? Leonard's heart stopped. Doctor? Before anyone could stop her, Christina scrubbed in and walked into that room. Leonard watched, frozen, as she did something that made his blood run cold. She disconnected Jason's ventilator. No! Leonard slammed the glass, but Christina lifted Jason out and held him against her chest. Then she reached for Justin, bringing both babies together, skin to skin. The alarms screamed, and then, impossibly, the numbers started changing. Their heart rates slowed, their oxygen climbed, their breathing synchronized. Christina hummed, rocking them gently, eyes closed in prayer. The alarms went silent. Both boys turned pink. Both boys breathed, together, alive. Leonard stood there, watching a miracle he couldn't understand. Another doctor burst in. That's impossible. They're breathing, the nurse whispered. Christina opened her eyes and looked at Leonard through the glass. And he realized the terrible truth. She knew his sons better than he did, and he didn't know her at all. Who is she? The doctor asked. The nurse checked her screen. Christina Walsh, MD, former NICU specialist. Her voice dropped. She left medicine 4 years ago after she lost her own daughter. Leonard felt the floor disappear. She'd been right there all along, and he'd never seen her. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button like this video and tell me where in the world you're watching from. Because this story is a reminder, the people serving quietly in your life might be the very ones God sent to save you. Don't miss them. Now let's go back. Leonard couldn't move. His hand was still pressed against the glass, his breath fogging it up in short bursts. Inside the room, Christina continued rocking his sons, humming that same low melody, completely calm, as if she hadn't just done the impossible. The neonatologist stood beside him now, staring at the monitors like they had betrayed her. I've never seen anything like this. Their vitals were critical, both of them. What did she do? Leonard's voice came out hoarse. Kangaroo care, the charge nurse said quietly. Skin-to-skin contact. It regulates their breathing, their heart rate, their temperature. It's proven science for premature babies, but... She stopped herself. But what? But they weren't premature, and they were too far gone. She looked at Christina through the glass. It shouldn't have worked, not like this. Leonard watched Christina press a kiss to Jason's head, then Justin's, still swaying gently. The boys' faces were peaceful now, pink, alive, like they'd never been dying at all. Who is she? He whispered. The charge nurse pulled up something on her tablet, scrolling slowly. Dr. Christina Marie Walsh, Johns Hopkins Medical School, graduated top of her class, residency at Mass General, board-certified neonatologist. She paused, reading further. One of the best in the state, actually, until 4 years ago. What happened 4 years ago? The nurse's face softened. She lost her daughter, premature birth, complications during delivery. The baby lived 48 hours. She looked up at Leonard. Dr. Walsh was the patient, not the doctor. She couldn't save her own child. The words hit Leonard like a punch to the chest. After that, she just disappeared, left her practice, left everything. The nurse glanced back at Christina. I had no idea she was here. In Boston, working as my housekeeper, Leonard finished, the shame of it burning through him. A hospital administrator appeared, clipboard in hand, face tight with concern. Mr. Smith, we need to talk about what just happened. Dr. Walsh performed a medical intervention without authorization, without parental consent, and without... She saved my sons. Leonard's voice was flat. That may be true, but protocol exists for a reason. If anything had gone wrong, the hospital's liability, nothing went wrong. This time, the administrator's tone sharpened. But Dr. Walsh hasn't practiced medicine in 4 years. She's not on staff here. Technically, she had no more authority to treat your sons than any other visitor. Leonard turned to face him. Are you saying you're going to punish her for saving their lives? I'm saying we have to investigate. Hospital policy requires it. The administrator glanced at Christina through the glass. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, but this isn't over. Leonard looked back at the woman holding his sons. She was whispering something to them now, words he couldn't hear. And for the first time in 3 years, he realized he'd never once asked her about her life, never asked where she came from, never asked why a woman like her was cleaning his floors. He'd been blind. And now, watching her cradle Jason and Justin like they were the most precious things in the world, he understood something that made his throat tighten. She hadn't just saved his sons tonight. She'd been saving them all along. The hospital let Christina stay with the boys until sunrise. Leonard watched from the hallway as she finally stepped out of the isolation room, carefully peeling off the gown and gloves. Her hands were steady, but her eyes looked exhausted, like she'd been holding her breath for hours and could finally let go. She walked past him without a word, heading toward the elevator. Christina. She stopped but didn't turn around. Thank you. His voice cracked on the words. I don't know what to say except thank you. She turned slowly. Up close, he could see the tears she'd been holding back. They're going to be okay, Mr. Smith. Both of them. Leonard, he said. You can call me Leonard. She nodded but didn't say it, just stood there, looking small and worn out in a way he'd never noticed before. How many times had he walked past her in his own house and never really looked? The hospital's opening an investigation, he said quietly. They told me. Something flickered across her face, fear, maybe, or resignation. I know. Why didn't you tell me you were a doctor? Christina looked down at her hands. Because I'm not. Not anymore. But I broke the rules tonight, Mr. Smith. I knew what I was doing. I knew what it would cost. She met his eyes. But I couldn't let them die. I couldn't stand there and do nothing. Not again. The weight in those last 2 words made Leonard's chest tighten. Not again. Her daughter. The one she couldn't save. Rebecca knew, Christina said softly. Your wife. She knew who I was, what I'd lost. She found me working at a hospice center, trying to be near people without carrying the weight of keeping them alive. Her voice wavered. She told me about the babies coming, about the cancer. She asked if I'd help. Leonard felt something break open inside him. She hired you to protect them. She hired me to love them, Christina corrected, because she knew she wouldn't be here to do it herself. A tear slipped down her cheek. I wasn't supposed to be their doctor, Mr. Smith. I was supposed to be their safety. The person who showed up when no one else could. Leonard thought about all the late nights he'd come home to find Christina rocking the boys to sleep. All the times he'd heard her singing softly from their nursery. All the mornings he'd found her already awake, bottle feeding them before the sun came up. He'd thought she was just doing her job. You've been raising them, he said, the realization hitting him hard. This whole time, while I've been grieving, Christina finished gently. You've been grieving, Mr. Smith. There's no shame in that. But there was shame. So much shame it nearly choked him. Because he hadn't just been grieving, he'd been hiding, running, building walls between himself and the 2 sons who needed him most, and Christina had been the one holding them together. What happens now? He asked. She wiped her eyes. Now I go home, get some rest, and wait to see if they're going to press charges. Charges? Unauthorized medical practice. It's serious. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. But it was worth it. They're alive. That's all that matters. She turned to leave, and Leonard felt panic rise in his chest. Christina, wait. She looked back. Don't go yet, please. I need to understand. Help me understand. For a long moment, she just studied his face. Then she nodded. Okay, Mr. Smith. Okay. They sat in the hospital cafeteria, 2 cups of coffee between them that neither one touched. Christina stared at hers, watching the steam rise. Leonard kept glancing at her, trying to find the right words. Finally, he just asked, "What was her name?" "Your daughter." Christina's breath caught. "Grace. Grace," he repeated softly. "She was born at 26 weeks. Too early, too small." Christina's voice was barely above a whisper. "I did everything right. Took my vitamins, rested, followed every protocol. But sometimes the body just gives up." Leonard waited, letting her speak. "She had my eyes," Christina continued, "dark brown, and these tiny, perfect fingers that would wrap around mine." She swallowed hard. 48 hours, that's all I got. 48 hours of being her mother before God took her home. "I'm sorry." Everyone was sorry. She finally looked up at him. "My fiancé couldn't handle it, left 2 weeks after the funeral. My colleagues didn't know what to say to me. The hospital put me on leave, said I needed time to heal. But how do you heal from that? How do you go back to saving other people's babies when you couldn't save your own?" Leonard didn't have an answer. "So I left," she said simply. Walked away from medicine, from everything. Started taking care of people who were already dying, where the pressure was off, where I couldn't fail them because they were already going. But you came back tonight." "I never left, Mr. Smith. Not really." Her eyes filled with tears. "When I heard that doctor say 2 hours, I was right back in that delivery room, right back to the moment they told me there was nothing more they could do. And I couldn't let it happen again. I couldn't stand by and watch 2 more babies die." Before Leonard could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. "Hospital board scheduled emergency meeting. They're discussing Christina's case. Legal involvement likely." He showed her the screen. Christina nodded slowly, like she'd been expecting it. "It's okay." "It's not okay." Leonard's voice rose. "You saved their lives. I also violated about a dozen hospital policies." She stood up, pulling her sweater tighter. "I knew what I was doing, Mr. Smith. I made my choice." "Leonard," he said firmly. "Please, just call me Leonard." She hesitated, then nodded. "Leonard." His phone rang. The hospital administrator. Leonard answered. "Mr. Smith, we need you back on the pediatric floor. Now." His heart stopped. "What happened? Are the boys? The boys are stable, but Dr. Walsh needs to leave the premises immediately. Security is waiting." Leonard looked at Christina. Her face had gone pale. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. "The board's decision was unanimous. Until the investigation is complete, Dr. Walsh is banned from hospital grounds. If she returns, we'll have her arrested for trespassing." "You can't do that. We already have Mr. Smith. She has 10 minutes to collect her belongings and leave." The line went dead. Christina was already walking toward the elevator, her shoulders squared like she was heading into battle. Leonard hurried after her. "Christina, wait. I can fight this. I can hire lawyers. It won't matter." She pressed the elevator button. "They're protecting themselves. I understand. But the boys, they need you." She turned to him, and the pain in her eyes nearly broke him. "They need their father. Leonard, that's who they need." The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. "I'll come back to the house," she said as the doors began to close. "I'll pack my things." "No," Leonard said quickly. "Don't. Please don't." But the doors closed, and she was gone. Leonard stood in the nursery that night, watching Jason and Justin sleep in their cribs. They'd been released from the hospital that afternoon with strict instructions: monitoring, medication, follow-up appointments. The doctors called it a miracle. Leonard just called it Christina. But she wasn't here. He'd driven home to an empty house. No sound of her humming from the kitchen. No smell of dinner warming on the stove. No gentle presence moving through the rooms, keeping everything together. He'd walked upstairs and found her bedroom door open. The bed was made. Her few belongings were gone, just like that. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter, written in careful handwriting. Mr. Smith, I've taken a leave of absence until the investigation is resolved. The boy's medication schedule is on the refrigerator. Dr. Patel's number is programmed into your phone. They'll need you now. C. They'll need you now. Like she knew he'd been absent. Like she'd been covering for him all along. Jason stirred in his crib, making a soft sound. Leonard reached down, touching his son's tiny hand. The baby's fingers didn't curl around his, didn't grip. Just lay there, limp and unresponsive. Leonard tried again. Nothing. A coldness spread through his chest. He moved to Justin's crib. Same thing. The baby didn't react to his touch. Didn't recognize him. Hey, buddy, Leonard whispered, trying to keep his voice steady. It's Daddy. I'm here. Justin turned his head away. Leonard stepped back, feeling something crack inside him. His own sons didn't know him. After 11 months of life, they didn't know their father's voice, didn't reach for him, didn't trust him. But they knew Christina. He'd seen it in the hospital, the way they'd calmed in her arms, the way they'd responded to her humming, the way they'd fought to survive because she'd refused to let them go. He pulled out his phone and called the hospital. This is Leonard Smith. I need to speak to Dr. Patel about my sons. The pediatrician answered on the second ring. Mr. Smith, is everything all right? They're not responding to me, Leonard said, trying to keep the panic out of his voice. I touch them and they just... nothing. They don't even look at me. A pause. Mr. Smith, who's been their primary caregiver? Leonard closed his eyes. Christina, the woman who saved them, Dr. Patel finished gently. Yes, I read the report. Mr. Smith, babies bond with whoever shows up consistently, whoever feeds them, holds them, comforts them when they cry. That's who they attach to. But I'm their father. Being their father and being present are two different things. The doctor's voice was kind but firm. They don't know titles. They know presence, safety, consistency. Leonard looked at his sons sleeping peacefully, and the truth of it nearly destroyed him. He'd given them everything except himself. How do I fix this? His voice broke. You show up, Dr. Patel said simply. Every feeding, every diaper change, every time they cry in the middle of the night, you show up, and eventually they'll learn to trust you. That night, when Justin woke up crying at 2 a.m., Leonard was the one who went to him. He picked up his son, tried to soothe him, but Justin just screamed harder, arching his back, pushing away. Leonard held him anyway, tears streaming down his face. I'm here, he whispered. I'm sorry I wasn't before, but I'm here now. I promise. Justin kept crying, kept reaching for someone who wasn't there, and Leonard finally understood what Christina had been trying to tell him. The boys didn't need his money. They needed him. 3 days passed, 3 days of Leonard trying to be the father his sons needed. He canceled meetings, ignored emails, stayed home and learned how to warm bottles, change diapers, read the same board books over and over. But Jason and Justin cried more than they slept. They refused to eat. They'd wake up screaming in the middle of the night, and nothing Leonard did could calm them. He was losing them. On the 4th morning, he found himself standing in Christina's old room, staring at the small space she'd occupied for 3 years. It was bare now except for a forgotten cardigan hanging in the closet. He pulled it out. It was worn soft, faded blue, and when he held it to his face, it smelled like her. Like lavender and something warm he couldn't name. The boys had always reached for this sweater when she held them. He brought it downstairs and draped it over the rocking chair in the nursery. When Jason woke from his nap, Leonard wrapped him in it. The baby's crying softened, not completely, but enough. Leonard's phone buzzed, his lawyer. Leonard, we need to talk about the hospital situation. They're moving forward with the investigation. Christina could face criminal charges, unauthorized medical practice, violation of hospital policy. If convicted, she'd lose her medical license permanently. Possibly jail time. Jail? Leonard's voice went cold. For saving my sons? For breaking the law, the lawyer said carefully. Look, I know this feels wrong, but the hospital has to protect itself. If they let this slide, it sets a precedent. Anyone could walk in, and she's not anyone. She's a board-certified neonatologist who knew exactly what she was doing, who hasn't practiced in 4 years, who acted without authorization. Leonard, if you want to protect your family from liability, the smartest move is to distance yourself from this. Let the hospital handle it. Don't get involved. Leonard hung up. He went to his study and opened his laptop, typed in Christina's name, spent the next 2 hours reading everything he could find. Dr. Christina Marie Walsh, published researcher, recipient of the Perinatal Care Excellence Award, 32 lives saved in her first year at Mass General. Patients' families called her a miracle worker. Then he found the obituary. Grace Elizabeth Walsh, born sleeping, lived breathing for 48 hours, survived by her mother, Dr. Christina Walsh. There was a photo. Christina, younger, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in white. Her face was raw with a kind of pain Leonard recognized, the same pain he'd felt when Rebecca died. He kept digging. Found a news article from 4 years ago. Acclaimed neonatologist takes leave following personal tragedy. And another. Mass General loses rising star. She hadn't just walked away. She'd disappeared, reinvented herself, buried her grief under service, and Rebecca had found her. Leonard stood and walked to Rebecca's closet. He hadn't opened it since she died, couldn't bring himself to touch her things, but now he pulled down the box from the top shelf, the one labeled Important. Inside, beneath old photos and letters, he found an envelope with his name on it, Rebecca's handwriting. His hands shook as he opened it. My love, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you finally discovered who Christina really is. I met her in the cancer center. She was volunteering, bringing comfort to people like me who were running out of time. We talked. She told me about Grace, about walking away from the work she loved because the pain was too much. I saw something in her, Leonard, a mother's heart with no child to love, and I had 2 sons coming who'd need a mother when I was gone. I know you'll be angry that I didn't tell you, but you were drowning in your own grief, and I needed to know someone would be there for our boys, someone who understood loss, someone who'd fight for them the way I couldn't anymore. Christina didn't take this job for money. She took it because I asked her to love our sons, and she has, every day, in ways you haven't seen. Don't let her disappear again, Leonard. Don't let the world punish her for having the courage to save what we both love most. Promise me. Forever yours, Rebecca. Leonard read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words. Rebecca had known, had planned this, had given him exactly what he needed, and he'd been too blind to see it. From upstairs he heard Justin crying, that desperate, inconsolable sound that meant he wanted Christina. Leonard folded the letter carefully and put it in his pocket. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. This is Leonard Smith. I need to schedule a meeting with the hospital board tomorrow morning, and I need Christina Walsh's address, now. Leonard found Christina's address in the hospital records, a small apartment building in Dorchester, 40 minutes from his house. But he didn't go there first. Instead, he went back to the hospital that night, found the security office, told them he needed to see the footage from the night his sons almost died. The security officer hesitated. Mr. Smith, that's part of an active investigation. Those are my sons. I have a right to see what happened. The officer looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. 15 minutes. That's all I can give you. He pulled up the footage on a monitor. Timestamp, 3:52 a.m., the pediatric ICU hallway, empty except for medical staff moving in and out of rooms. Start here, the officer said. This is when your sons were admitted. Leonard watched himself burst through the doors, frantic and disheveled, watched the doctor meet him, watched his own face crumble as the news was delivered. Can you rewind? Leonard asked quietly. Further back. Before I arrived. The officer scrolled backward. And there, at 3:34 a.m., Christina appeared. Leonard leaned closer to the screen. She came through a side entrance, still in her house clothes, moving quickly but not running, like she'd known exactly where to go. She was already here, Leonard whispered. Before anyone called her. The officer nodded. Looks like she came with the ambulance. Must have been at your house when they picked up the boys. The footage showed Christina entering the ICU observation area, but she didn't announce herself, didn't approach the nurse's station. Instead, she stood in the corner of the room where the incubators were, silent, watching, invisible. Leonard watched the timestamp tick forward, watched the medical team work, watched the attending physician enter, and then he saw it. Christina standing there, still and small, as the doctor spoke to someone off camera. "Can you get audio?" Leonard asked. The officer adjusted something. The sound crackled to life. "Exhausted all options. Without transplants, these boys have approximately 2 hours before organ failure becomes irreversible. I'm sorry. There's nothing more we can do." On the screen, Christina's face changed. Her eyes closed. Her hand went to her mouth, and Leonard saw her lips move. He asked the officer to rewind it, played it again, leaned so close to the monitor his breath fogged the screen. "Not again," Christina whispered to herself, so quiet the microphone barely caught it. "Please, God." Not again. Leonard's throat tightened. The footage continued. The doctor left. The nurses dispersed. And Christina stood there alone, staring at Jason and Justin in their separate incubators. She stepped closer to the glass, pressed her forehead against it. Her shoulders shook. Then she straightened, wiped her eyes, and walked out of frame. "What's she doing?" the officer asked. Leonard didn't answer. He watched the timestamp. 2 minutes passed, 3. Then Christina reappeared, this time at the nurse's station, confident, direct, speaking with authority. The nurse's shocked response, "Dr. Walsh?" And then Christina explained something, her hands moving as she spoke. The officer turned up the volume. "Kangaroo care. It's proven effective for respiratory distress in infants. Skin-to-skin contact, both twins together. I can walk you through the research." The attending physician interrupted, his tone dismissive. "Ms. Walsh, I appreciate the suggestion, but we don't practice alternative medicine in this ICU. Hospital protocol requires—" "Protocol is going to let those boys die," Christina said quietly. "That's not your call to make. You're not on staff here. He paused, checking something. "You haven't practiced in 4 years. I'm going to have to ask you to step back." Christina nodded, said nothing, watched him leave. Then she looked back at the incubators, at Jason and Justin dying alone in their plastic beds. The footage showed her standing there for a long moment, perfectly still, like she was praying or deciding. Then she moved to the scrub sink. Leonard watched her wash her hands with the precision of someone who'd done it 10,000 times, watched her put on the gown and gloves, watched her walk into that room knowing exactly what it would cost her. She didn't hesitate, didn't second guess. She just lifted those babies and held them like they were hers. The monitor showed the alarms going off, showed Leonard appearing at the window, panicked and helpless, showed the miracle that followed. But what broke Leonard wasn't the miracle. It was what came after. When the boys stabilized and the doctors rushed in, Christina stepped back, let them take over. And for just a moment, one brief, unguarded moment, the camera caught her face. She wasn't smiling, wasn't celebrating. She was crying, silently. Her hand pressed to her mouth, her whole body trembling, like she'd just relived the worst moment of her life, and survived it this time. The footage ended. Leonard sat there in the dark security office staring at the blank screen, and finally understood what Christina had done. She hadn't just saved his sons, she'd sacrificed herself. Again. "Mr. Smith?" the officer said gently. "You okay?" Leonard stood, his legs unsteady. "I need that footage. Can you make me a copy?" "It's evidence, please," Leonard's voice cracked. "I need it." The officer looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Give me 5 minutes." Leonard walked out of the security office with the flash drive in his pocket, and Rebecca's letter still folded against his heart, and he knew exactly what he had to do. Leonard drove home in silence. The city lights blurred past his windows, but he didn't see them. All he could see was Christina's face on that screen, the way she'd stood there, invisible and breaking, watching his sons die. The way she'd chosen to act, even when it meant losing everything. When he pulled into his driveway, the house looked different somehow. Emptier, like something essential had been removed. He walked upstairs to the nursery. Jason and Justin were awake, lying quietly in their cribs. Not crying, just staring at the ceiling with those dark, watchful eyes that looked so much like Rebecca's. Leonard sat down in the rocking chair, the one Christina had sat in every night for 3 years. He picked up the blue cardigan still draped over the arm and held it for a moment. Then he reached into Justin's crib and lifted him out. The baby stiffened in his arms, uncertain. "I know," Leonard whispered. "I know I haven't been here, but I'm trying. I'm really trying." He began to rock slowly, the way he'd watched Christina do it, back and forth, steady. And he started humming, that same low melody he'd heard her sing through the hospital glass. Justin's body relaxed slightly, not completely, but enough. Leonard closed his eyes and let himself remember, really remember. All those mornings he'd left for work before the boys woke up. All those nights he'd come home after they were already asleep. All those moments Christina had been there, feeding them, bathing them, singing to them, while he'd hidden behind meetings and emails and the excuse of grief. She'd been raising his sons, loving them. And he'd let her, because it was easier than facing the truth, that every time he looked at Jason and Justin, he saw Rebecca. And it hurt too much. So he'd paid Christina a salary and told himself that was enough, that providing was the same as being present. But it wasn't. Jason made a sound from his crib. Leonard looked over and saw his son's hand reaching toward him, small fingers opening and closing. Leonard's throat tightened. He stood, still holding Justin, and somehow managed to lift Jason with his other arm, both boys against his chest now, awkward and heavy and more than he thought he could carry, but he held them anyway. "Your mama loved you so much," he whispered into their soft hair. "And Christina, she loved you too. Enough to risk everything." His voice broke. "I'm sorry I didn't see it. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you deserved." Jason's tiny hand found his shirt and gripped it. Leonard looked down, and for the first time, his son was looking back at him, really looking, like he was trying to decide if this man could be trusted. "I'm here now," Leonard said softly. "I'm not going anywhere. I promise." They stayed like that for a long time. Leonard rocking in the chair, both boys in his arms, the room quiet except for their breathing. Eventually, Jason and Justin fell asleep. Leonard kept holding them, afraid that if he put them down, this fragile connection might break. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He carefully pulled it out with one hand. A text from his lawyer. "Board meeting set for 9 a.m. tomorrow. They want your statement on record. Are you sure you want to proceed with this?" Leonard looked at his sleeping sons, thought about Christina standing in that hospital corner, invisible and heartbroken, choosing to save them anyway. He typed back with one thumb. "I'm sure. See you at 9. Then he opened his contacts and scrolled to a name he hadn't called in months. His brother, David, a trial attorney in New York. The phone rang twice before David answered, groggy. "Leonard, it's almost midnight. Everything okay?" "No," Leonard said quietly. "Everything's not okay, but I need your help. There's someone." He paused, looking down at his sons. "There's someone I need to fight for." "Who?" Leonard thought about Christina walking into that room knowing she'd lose everything. Thought about her standing in his house for 3 years, loving his children while he looked right through her. "The woman who saved my life," he said, "and I didn't even know her name." There was silence on the other end. Then David's voice, clearer now. "Tell me everything." So Leonard did. He talked until his voice was hoarse, until both boys were deeply asleep, until the sky outside began to lighten with the first hint of dawn. And when he finally hung up, he knew what he had to do. He gently laid Jason and Justin in their cribs, kissed their foreheads, and went downstairs. Found paper and a pen. Started writing. Not a legal statement, not a prepared testimony. The truth. Every word he should have said 3 years ago, every apology he owed, every realization that had come too late. He wrote until his hand cramped, until the coffee pot beeped in the kitchen, until the sun rose fully over the city. Then he folded the pages, put them in his jacket pocket next to Rebecca's letter, and got dressed for the meeting that would decide Christina's future. His hands were steady as he tied his tie, because for the first time in years, Leonard Smith knew exactly who he needed to be. Not a billionaire, not a CEO, a father, fighting for the woman who'd taught him what that word really meant. The hospital boardroom was cold. Fluorescent lights, white walls, a long table with 7 people sitting behind it, all wearing expressions that gave nothing away. Christina sat alone on one side of the room, wearing a simple gray dress. Her hands were folded in her lap, steady and still. But Leonard could see the tension in her shoulders, the exhaustion around her eyes. She glanced up when he entered, and something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or fear that he'd come to make things worse. He took the seat beside her. "Mr. Smith," she whispered, "you don't have to." "Yes, I do." The board chair cleared his throat. "Mr. Smith, thank you for coming. We understand you have a statement regarding the incident involving Ms. Walsh and your sons." Leonard stood. "Dr. Walsh," he corrected quietly. "Her name is Dr. Christina Walsh." The chair's eyebrow raised slightly. "Dr. Walsh hasn't practiced medicine in 4 years. For the purposes of this hearing." "For the purposes of this hearing," Leonard interrupted, "you need to know exactly who you're judging." He pulled the flash drive from his pocket. "I have security footage from the night my sons were dying. I need you to watch it." The board members exchanged glances. The chair nodded to an assistant who set up the monitor. The room went silent as the footage played. Leonard watched their faces as Christina appeared on screen. Watched them see her arrive before anyone called her. See her standing invisible in that corner. See her face when the doctor said 2 hours. See her whisper, "Not again." One of the board members, an older woman, leaned forward, her expression softening. The footage continued, Christina explaining kangaroo care, the attending physician dismissing her, Christina standing alone, deciding. When it reached the moment she walked into that room, the board chair paused the video. "Mr. Smith, we've reviewed this footage. We know what Dr. Walsh did. The question isn't whether her intervention worked, it's whether she had the authority to make that decision." "She had something better than authority," Leonard said. "She had love." He reached into his jacket and pulled out Rebecca's letter. "My wife knew she was dying. She knew our sons would need someone, so she found Christina, not a housekeeper, a mother, someone who understood loss and still chose to show up anyway." He handed the letter to the board chair. "Read it. Read what my wife saw in her, what I was too blind to see." The room was quiet except for the sound of pages turning. The board chair read, his expression unreadable. Then he passed it to the others. Leonard turned to face Christina. She was looking at him now, tears streaming down her face. "For 3 years," Leonard said, his voice thick, "Christina loved my sons while I hid from them. She fed them at midnight, sang them to sleep, held them when they cried. She was their mother in every way that mattered. And when they were dying, when the doctors gave up, she broke the rules because that's what mothers do. They risk everything for their children." He looked back at the board. "You want to punish her for that? For having the courage to act when everyone else walked away? For saving 2 innocent lives because she couldn't stand by and watch them die? Then you punish me too. Because I'm the one who failed. I'm the one who should have been there. She filled the space I abandoned." The board chair set down the letter. "Mr. Smith, no one is questioning Dr. Walsh's intentions." "Then what are you questioning?" Leonard's voice rose. "Her credentials. She's more qualified than half the doctors in this hospital." "Her judgment?" "She saved my sons when your protocols were killing them." "Her heart? She lost her own daughter and still found the strength to save mine." He walked closer to the table. "You want to revoke her license, take her future, then take mine too. Because those boys downstairs, they don't know me, but they know her, they trust her, they need her. And if you punish her for loving them, you're not protecting medicine, you're destroying it." His voice broke. "She's the best doctor I've ever seen, and the best person I've ever known, and I'm begging you, don't make her pay for my failures." The room fell silent. Christina stood, her voice barely a whisper. "Mr. Smith, Leonard, you don't have to do this." He turned to her. "Yes, I do." You saved my sons. You saved me. And I should have said that 3 years ago. The board chair looked at the other members. Quiet conversations, nodded heads. Finally, he spoke. Dr. Walsh, this board has reviewed your credentials, the security footage, Mr. Smith's testimony, and the medical outcomes. While your actions were unconventional and violated hospital protocol, we cannot ignore the results. Both children survived. Both are thriving. Christina's breath caught. However, he continued, we cannot simply overlook the breach of procedure. Therefore, our decision is this. Your medical license will be fully reinstated with a formal commendation for extraordinary intervention under crisis conditions. But you will be required to complete a refresher course on hospital protocols before resuming any official practice. Christina's legs nearly gave out. Leonard caught her elbow, steadying her. Furthermore, the chair said, looking at Leonard, the hospital's kangaroo care policies will be revised based on Dr. Walsh's intervention. Her actions, while unauthorized, have shown us gaps in our approach to critical infant care. The room seemed to exhale. Dr. Walsh, the chair said, his voice gentler now, you're free to go, and for what it's worth, those boys are lucky to have you. Christina couldn't speak, could only nod, tears falling freely now. The board members stood, gathering their papers. One by one, they filed out, until only Leonard and Christina remained, standing in that cold, white room that suddenly felt warmer. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yes, I did. Leonard's voice was rough. Christina, I've been blind. For 3 years, I looked right through you. I let you raise my sons while I pretended work was more important than being their father. He paused. But I see you now. And I'm asking, begging. Please come home, not as our housekeeper, as family. Christina looked up at him, and Leonard saw everything in her eyes. The grief she'd carried, the love she'd given, the sacrifice she'd made. They need you, he said softly. I need you. She wiped her tears. I don't know if I can. You already have been, Leonard said. You've been their mother all along. I'm just asking you to stop hiding it. Christina closed her eyes, breathed deep, and when she opened them again, something had shifted. Okay, she whispered. Okay, Leonard, I'll come home. They drove home together in Leonard's car, the city passing by in silence. Not the uncomfortable kind. The kind that comes after a storm, when everything finally settles and you can breathe again. When they pulled into the driveway, Christina stared at the house like she was seeing it for the first time. I don't know if I remember how to do this, she said quietly. How to be here without pretending. Then we'll figure it out together, Leonard said. Inside, the nanny Leonard had hired was rocking Justin, who'd been crying for the past hour. The woman looked exhausted, relieved when she saw them. I'm so sorry, Mr. Smith. I've tried everything. He just won't settle. Christina stepped forward, and Justin's head turned immediately. His crying softened to a whimper. She reached for him, and the baby practically lunged into her arms. Mama, he whispered, his first word, clear and certain. Christina's breath caught. She looked at Leonard, her eyes wide. Did he just... He knows, Leonard said softly. He's always known. The nanny gathered her things quietly and left. And then it was just the 3 of them, soon to be 4 when Leonard brought Jason down from his nap. Christina sat in the rocking chair, holding Justin close, humming that same melody. And this time, Leonard didn't watch from a distance. He sat on the floor beside her, close enough to touch. I'm sorry, he said, for everything, for not seeing you, for letting you carry this alone. You were grieving, Christina said gently. We both were. But you still showed up, every single day, she smiled through tears. That's what love does, Leonard. It shows up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. From upstairs, Jason started making noise, not crying, just awake. Leonard stood. I'll get him. When he came back down, Jason in his arms, the baby looked between Leonard and Christina. Then, he reached out his small hand toward her. But he didn't push away from Leonard. He just wanted them both. Christina took Jason's hand and kissed it, and for the first time, they sat together, Leonard on one side, Christina on the other, both boys between them. A family. Not the one Leonard had imagined, not the one he'd planned, but the one God had been building all along, piece by piece, through loss and love and second chances. Rebecca knew, Christina whispered. She saw this before either of us could. Leonard nodded. She gave us each other, gave the boys both of us. That evening, they put the boys to bed together. Leonard read the story. Christina sang the lullaby. And when Jason said "da-da" for the first time, soft and sleepy and sure, Leonard had to step into the hallway to compose himself. Christina found him there, tears on his face. "He said it," Leonard whispered. "He finally said it." "Because you showed up," Christina said. "You stayed." They stood there in the dim hallway, and Leonard realized something. This wasn't the ending. It was the beginning, the start of learning how to be a family, how to share the weight, how to love without hiding. Downstairs, Leonard made tea while Christina sat at the kitchen table. Real tea. Not coffee from a hospital cafeteria, just two people in a quiet house, finally able to rest. "What happens now?" she asked. Leonard set the cup in front of her, sat down across from her. "Now we raise them together. No more pretending you're just the help. No more me hiding behind work. We do this right, as a team." Christina wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if I mess this up? What if—" "Then we mess it up together," Leonard said. "And we try again tomorrow. That's what family does." She smiled. A real smile this time. The first one he'd seen in weeks. Later that night, Leonard stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching Christina tuck the boys in one more time. She kissed their foreheads, whispered prayers over them, and when she turned to leave, she found Leonard waiting. "Thank you," he said, "for not giving up. On them. On me." "Thank you for finally seeing me," she replied. They walked downstairs together, and for the first time in 3 years, Leonard didn't feel alone in his own house. Outside, the city lights glowed soft against the night sky. Inside, 2 baby boys slept peacefully, their breathing synchronized, their hearts beating steady and strong. And somewhere, Rebecca smiled, because her final gift had come full circle. She'd left behind 2 sons who needed a father, a broken man who needed purpose, and a grieving woman who needed someone to love. She'd stitched them together with hope, with faith, with the belief that even the most shattered lives could be made whole again. Leonard stood at the window, looking out at the stars, and whispered a prayer of his own. "Thank you. For Christina. For the boys. For giving me another chance." Behind him, Christina appeared with 2 mugs. "Couldn't sleep?" "Just thinking," Leonard said, "about how close I came to losing everything." She handed him the mug, stood beside him. "But you didn't. You fought. You showed up. That's all that matters." They stood there in comfortable silence, 2 broken people who'd found each other in the ruins. And in that moment, Leonard understood what grace really meant. It wasn't perfection. It wasn't getting it right the first time. It was second chances. It was showing up after you'd failed. It was love choosing to stay when leaving would have been easier. It was Christina walking into that hospital room knowing she'd lose everything. It was God using the invisible to save them all. "We're going to be okay," Christina said softly. Leonard looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the woman who'd saved his sons, his life, his heart. "Yeah," he said. "We are." Upstairs, Jason stirred in his sleep and whispered, "Mama." And Justin, in the crib beside him, answered with a sleepy, "Da-da." 2 words, 2 babies, 1 family, broken pieces made beautiful, and love, quiet, sacrificial, powerful love, holding them all together. Sometimes the person who saves you is the one you never saw. Sometimes healing begins not in hospitals, but in the quiet choice to stay, to show up, to love when it costs everything. This is a reminder. Don't overlook the people serving in the background of your life. They might be exactly who God sent to save you.